Good evening. I'm Peggy LaFrance of the NAACP. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, the News Gazette, and Illinois Public Media, WILL, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. Tonight's forum is for the Auditor of Champaign County. Because of COVID-19 pandemic, we are unfortunately not presenting this forum in person. Consequently, we are not accepting questions concurrently with the forum. I urge you to submit your questions for next week's forums via email, phone, or directly from the form on our website. Our website is lwvchampaigncounty.org. Similar questions which have been submitted have been grouped together, and consequently, your question may not be asked in precisely the way you submitted it. Due to limited time, we may not be able to get all of the submitted questions. This forum is being broadcasted on the League's Facebook live stream and also by Illinois Public Media via their Facebook page. After the forum, it will be available on the League's YouTube channel. Yes, we have a YouTube channel and it will be broadcast by UPTV. The UPTV schedule is available on the City of Urbana website. I will be moderating this forum. As of right now, Gary Maxwell is our only candidate on the forum for auditor. So he will receive 5 minutes to speak. Mr. Maxwell, you may speak.
Well, thank you. Good evening. I am Gary Maxwell. I live in Mahomet. I am the Republican candidate for Champaign County Auditor. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, the News Gazette, and Illinois Public Media for making this debate possible, or at least my talk possible. I've lived in Champaign County more than 40 years. I earned a civil engineering degree from the University of Illinois and a master's of public administration from Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville. I am both an Illinois licensed professional engineer and land surveyor. I administered 4 Illinois County highway departments while serving as their county engineer. It was my responsibility to assure accurate federal highway project documentation was submitted on time for review by state and federal auditors, and I stress on time. Failure to do so would have resulted in severe financial penalties to the counties. In recent years, I served on the Champaign County Board and was chairman of the board's facilities committee. I administered the development of the rather trailblazing Bailey Edwards facility study and assessment report. The board is currently using this report to better plan, budget, and implement the maintenance of its facilities. I'm a candidate for the auditor's office in order to restore credibility and public trust in the county and the affairs of Champaign County, financial affairs of Champaign County. Furthermore, I want to assure the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission can successfully compete for federal Head Start and other program grants by providing timely and competent audit services. Again, I stress timely. I am joining others in calling for replacing the elected county auditor, treasurer, and recorder with a non-partisan professional chief financial administrator. The selection process of the CFA would be similar to the processes currently employed to hire county engineer, the supervisor assessments, and the CEO of the Regional Planning Commission. Federal grant administration agencies in this and a nearby county have lost management contracts and funding of Head Start and other programs due to poor performance and non-compliance to grant requirements. Minutes of the November 22nd, 2019 meeting of the Regional Planning Commission indicate that Commission staff was very concerned Head Start and early Head Start grants could be in jeopardy due to Champaign County not being compliant with federal regulations and regarding the timely submission of the audit. I do not want to risk any federal dollars for our disadvantaged children, and if elected Champaign County Auditor, I will prevent that from happening. The quality and performance of the Champaign County Auditor's Office has always depended upon the administrative ability, work ethic, and dedication to public service of the individual serving as county auditor. I have served both as an administrator and policymaker in county government. I am convinced Champaign County government's future lies in replacing the auditor, treasurer, and recorder with a competent, non-partisan professional administrator. 2,500 years ago, Greek philosophers discussed public administration and recognized some individuals are simply better at efficiently allocating resources and managing government affairs than others. I'm a proven administrator and ask you to vote for me as your next Champaign County auditor, Champaign County Auditor. That concludes my 5 minutes.
Hey, Peggy. It looks like Mr. Danos has joined us, and we're going to give him 5 minutes to speak, and then we'll go to asking questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Danos, you can proceed.
Well, thanks, Peggy. I see Gary. There we are. All right. Well, thank you, Lee, the News Gazette, the NAACP, and Illinois Media for sponsoring tonight's forum, and to all who watch. I'm George Danos, your county auditor. It has been my honor and pleasure to serve as your auditor this half term. And they're telling me I'm on. Okay. Am I on, by the way? It has been my honor and pleasure to serve you as auditor this half term, and I ask you to reelect me this fall. In 2018, I became the first CPA to serve as auditor, thereby providing government with both certified credentials and democratic oversight. My master's in accounting is from the University of Illinois' top-tier program. Allow me to provide you with a midterm report. My duties are to report financials and to make sure county expenditures are paid correctly, lawfully, and as you wished. I must enhance transparency and welcome whistleblowing from the community. I'd like to briefly tell you how I've performed all three functions. By October 26th, when I will upload my third annual financial report, or CAFR, it will be my third in less than 2 years. The previous 4 Republican CAFRs were late, but under my tenure, we will deliver the 2019 and all subsequent CAFRs without any extensions at all. I've stepped in to perform the treasurer's bank reconciliations, and I am still under budget with that out of scope duty. In this office, competence resides with CPAs, and you, the voters, obtained one without giving away your civic duty and rights to some murky appointment process. At votechampaign.org, you can find the answers to the candidate surveys. My opponent called for placing online a listing of vendor contracts and capital assets, and he promised to do so within 3 months. That's very decisive. I like the proposal so much that I already did so in 3 weeks. You will find these hyperlinks on the County Auditor website. You'll also find the first ever waste, fraud, and abuse portal. I thank those constituents who have already reported suspicions about the misuse of county funds, and I urge you to continue to do so. Champaign voters, I've demonstrated my skill and dedication as an accountant, as a watchdog, and as a publicist of financial data. I ask your vote this November to continue my good work.
Thank you. I will bypass the first question for you because you just explained, which was, what does the auditor's office do and what are your qualifications for the job? And so you just explained that. Mr. Maxwell, we're going to go with you to answer that question. What does the auditor's office do and what are your qualifications for the job?
The auditor's office by law is required to file a quarterly report with the county board. That's under the auditor statute. Other statutes, including the GATA and also the State Controllers Act require an audit, which is a annual audit. And that has to be filed with the Controller's Office. The Auditor's Office is a watchdog, and it primarily does report writing, the audits and this sort of thing. And it also it manages contracts and this sort of thing for the county board. I don't feel like I'll have any problems doing all that. I've dealt with numbers all my life, and should have no problem doing what is required in the office.
Thank you. Mr. Maxwell, why are you running for this position?
I'm running to help restore confidence in the financial affairs of Champaign County. The auditor, the treasurer, and even the county executive all are part of the financial system, the tax collection, the tax billing, the tax reporting, the tax recording. That's team has failed us, and it's more pronounced in the treasurer's office. But the entire team needs to be replaced, including the auditor and the treasurer. And I'm running as a team with the treasurer candidate to do that.
Mr. Danos, why are you running for this position?
As your incumbent, I seek to continue the good work I have performed in reinvigorating the office. I have a team that I have very good confidence in, and one that shall bring about further efficiencies and a higher degree of morale than among my predecessors. The goals that I have going forward, I will discuss at some length in my closing statement, but I do feel very much bonded with the implementation of our new ERP, our new Enterprise Resource Program. That is something that gives a 21st century graphical interface and allows our accountants to submit data accurately and more quickly. This is something that will allow us to give dashboard reports and to service the department heads with less turnaround than under the AS400. We've already gone through the RFP process and know what its capabilities are and are ready to take charge with a more modernized, a more modern and vigorous system.
Thank you. Mr. Danos, what are your goals for the office and how long would it take to accomplish these goals?
Well, I obtained some goals by the suggestions of my opponent that I already accomplished and that are on my website. So I've stated those. I also, besides the implementation of the ERP, seek to create a collaboration with the incoming treasurer to perform the bank reconciliations, which is their job. So far, my department has been able to absorb those duties under our own budget and with our own time, and which is something we don't want to continue going forward. So I look forward to restoring the traditional division of labor between the two offices by collaborating with the responsible parties in the new team, whichever team that is. I think I have a little bit more time. The other main goal that I have in my next term is to spend more time on auditing and in checking the expenditures to see if there is still some potential for savings after we save time by making the traditional bookkeeping function more efficient under the new ERP. So that would be allowing some efficiencies by redirecting efforts in a way that couldn't be done prior.
Thank you, Mr. Danos. Mr. Maxwell, what are your goals for the office and how long would it take you to accomplish these goals?
First thing, my goals would be to become a very engaged, active auditor. People will know where I'm at and see me. But work towards getting excellence returned to the auditor's office and getting awards for filing CAFRs and PAFRs in the future. Current auditor has failed to get that done, even though his performance standards, and the county budget for 2019 and 20 lists several that he's supposed to accomplish, at least the objectives that he will accomplish. He has failed to accomplish many of those. I intend to see that the excellence is returned to the county auditor's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maxwell, could you describe the relationships of the auditor's office to the preparation of an outside audit?
The outside audit, the audit, county annual audit, is submitted to the outside audit for review and approval. It's essentially get a good audit out of the auditor's office into the outside auditor and receive back as few adverse comments as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Danos, could you describe the relationship of the auditor's office to the preparation of an outside audit?
Thank you, Peggy. I certainly can. I've gone through this cycle twice already, even though I've not yet had 2 years in this office. The reason being, the 2017 audit was not completed by my appointed Republican predecessor. I had 2 weeks to complete that. And by the way, I want to refer to the RPC argument that my opponent mistakenly and misleadingly alluded to. The Regional Planning Commission does depend on a timely and clean audit coming from the auditor's office. That threatening clock was already ticking when I came into office on December 3rd, 2018. And I had 2 weeks to get that audit out, and I did. It was delivered on December 19th with a clean opinion. We had threatening letters that I didn't know about until I took office. It was never brought to the board's attention in November. And this year, we never had the time clock ticking. There was never any threat to RPC or any grantors whatsoever. During the era of COVID, everyone in my office was at their desk every single day. We made sure we were doing whatever it took to get that clean opinion, even though the enforcement agencies, and by the way, they are not merely the state controller, they are also the Illinois Department of Human Services, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and many others that you will not find in a job description or a statute, the vague descriptions that I'm hearing in the preceding comments. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next question is, why is there, Mr. Danos, this is for you, why is there an outside audit if there is an elected auditor?
Yeah, the term audit takes on many different meanings in different contexts. What we mean by county auditor, as defined in the Illinois statutes, is the person who makes sure the expenditures are done in accordance with the popular will and in accordance with county bylaws and state law. So I'm auditing the ongoing expenditures. The other role is controller, which does the financial reporting, and those statements are done in-house. And so we do them more cheaply than even the collar counties up north. But they have to go to an independent outside auditor to say that this entity, the Champaign County government, has fairly stated in all material respects its financial position and performance. So I'm doing the accounting, but the auditor has to be from outside. When I'm doing the auditing of expenditures, that's really an accounts payable function.
Thank you, Mr. Danos. Mr. Maxwell, why is there an outside audit if there is an elected auditor?
I think Mr. Danos just pretty much answered that question. They are, again, required to audit the accounting work of the Champaign County Auditor's Office and come back with any adverse comments or comments that apply to the quality of the work.
Thank you. Mr. Maxwell, how is the outside auditor chosen?
Well, when I was on the county board, we hired an auditor about annually, and that auditor was generally retained for 4 or 5 years. As I was leaving the board decided to change, and I think they should, to change outside auditors, and they employed the current auditor that is doing the work. I suspect we're getting down towards the cycle that it's time to replace the outside auditor.
Thank you. Mr. Danos, how is the outside auditor chosen?
The outside auditor is chosen on the basis of a rubric that Administrative Services has devised and that gets renewed every 5 years. We seek a good price and somebody who is familiar with government so that they can proceed apace. The county board then approves the RFP or the contract, and they go for 5 years. The rotation of the auditors does not necessarily mean that you change firms. It does mean, however, if you retain the same firm for the next 5-year cycle, that they have to put a new audit team in place. And the firms that we choose are large enough to be able to do that. There are some efficiencies in continuing with the same firm simply because they know you as long as you're rotating the personnel. At the same time, you probably would not want to renew 2 5-year contracts, more than 2 5-year contracts. So that is the process.
Thank you. It has been Mr. Danos, this is for you. It has been proposed several times to put on the ballot a referendum question to abolish the office of auditor. What is your position on this issue?
I think that the position of auditor does need a measure of independence from the county departments and from the county board, and even this political party that require direct election by the electorate. The problem with proposals to appoint the auditor invites another question, which is who does the appointing? And normally that's someone who has amassed a lot of centralized power. And in that case, it's just like anytime you do so, you better get the right person. When you have a team, when you have several different department heads being elected in staggered ways, at least you're hedging your bets on what kind of people you're placing in office, and you have time to react. So for both, for those 2 reasons, I think that it's probably better to have one elected. Incidentally, I don't think that's the highest concern. The most important concern is that you do have someone who is an accredited professional. In my case, I am a CPA, the first ever elected in Champaign government. And I dare say that if there were to be an appointment, that between the 2 elective candidates, I would be the one who would get that appointment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Maxwell. It has been proposed several times to put the ballot on a referendum question to abolish the office of auditor. What is your position on this?
First of all, I'd like to note that most county auditors in Illinois are not CPAs by a large percentage. The law does not require that. Now, in answer to your question specifically, for example, the county engineer is appointed by the county board. There's a list of county, it's a very rigorous process. You advertise, you bring in the best candidates you can, you window it down. The county board then votes on the most qualified, and they generally have a pretty good success rate on who they hire. It's done the same way for school districts who hire their general superintendents and that sort of thing. In this particular process, we would recommend that the county administrator, county executive appoint and the county board approve based on interviewing several candidates. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Maxwell, how do we best ensure qualified professionals in public office by election or appointment?
I think the best way to get qualified professionals in office is through the appointment process. This is the way you hire county administrators. Again, you hire general superintendents for your school districts, school systems, and just about any profession has these kind of processes that they're very familiar with and are very successful. I'll have to say that we've had real good luck in this county hiring the county engineer. Current supervisor assessment's doing a good job, and I think they are now looking for a replacement for the CEO of the Regional Planning Commission.
Thank you. There's a second part to this question. Are you strengthened by being elected directly?
Is that for me?
Yes. So this
Would
is,
you
I guess,
repeat that
for
question?
this one. Are you strengthened by being elected directly?
I didn't quite understand what you said.
Are you strengthened by being elected directly?
It could be. Um, Again, you end up with some people that are certainly not qualified to fill the shoes of that particular officer. I think we've had some recent experience with that in the Champaign County government. And other than that, I don't really care whether I was elected or not. I never was elected as a county engineer. Didn't have to be.
Thank you. Mr. Danos, how do we ensure qualified professionals in public office by election or appointment?
I think that to make the position attractive and to keep a well-educated, engaged populace, you will have a good workforce to draw from, regardless of the methodology. It was interesting to hear in the opening statements the citation of a Greek philosopher 2,500 years ago. I'd like to actually allude to that because one of the problems among Greek philosophers was that there was an assumption by Plato and the laws that if you pass the right legislation, then you get a good society. But that seems to have been a little optimistic. To have a good society, you also have to have good people with good character. And ultimately, regardless of whether we appoint or we elect, you're going to have an informed, engaged electorate with good candidates to choose from, or a very good county executive who never abuses her appointment power.
Okay, the second part of this question, are you strengthened by being elected directly?
I think so. As the elected auditor, if I needed to question an expenditure coming directly from administrative services, I have the power to do that. I am not elected alongside or appointed by the county executive who now leads the administrative department, the administrative services. The same thing would go for any of our departments, even those that get grant funding. So yes, to be directly elected rather than appointed by the board or by a county executive allows the auditor to strongly assert the taxpayers' needs, irrespective of whose feathers get ruffled in this building.
Thank you. Mr. Danos, if the office were abolished, how would you recommend the function of the office of auditor be handled?
Definitely appoint a CPA to be the overall auditor in the case that you had an auditor, but the appointment would have to be independent from the treasurer. You certainly could not wrap all these positions into a single one. So the main thing is, and this is a first principle in accounting, maintain the segregation of duties so that you have good internal control. You don't want any collusion, and you certainly don't want two different coincidence of interests happening in the same person. You saw this in Dixon, Illinois. There's a Netflix documentary called The Queen of Horses. It's about how when one person was both controller and treasurer, she was able to fake invoices and steal $52 million over less than 30 years from a small town. So I prefer that an auditor be elected, strengthened through election, absolutely independent. But if it should come down to appointment, then there must be some kind of safeguards so that that office and that officer is also qualified and independent of other financial officers.
Thank you, Mr. Danos. Mr. Maxwell, if the office were to be abolished, how would you recommend the function of office be handled?
I'll definitely be an appointed professional. And Mr. Danos is correct that there would have to be certain criteria and job description for the auditor's office. Would not necessarily have to be a CPA, but on the other hand, maybe Mr. Danos is onto something. The county engineers are, by law, required to be registered professional engineers. And they do, and we, as a result, we get very good people in office. So I would suggest Mr. Danos may want to go to the legislature and take care of this sort of thing and make sure that then the offices do require CPA, which they do not require, which it does not require today.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. We're down to our final question. Mr. Maxwell, what else do you want the voters to know about you?
Well, I think a great deal of Champaign County. It's been my home. I have many friends here throughout the entire county. I've been in the public administration, public assistant, public transportation, especially since I was 17 years old. And I've been called one of the boys of I-74. That's one of my proudest distinctions. But I also have many other projects that I'm very proud of. I've been a public administrator, and I've assisted the passage of many important transportation laws. And I'm a very hard worker, and I'm looking very much in favor and much forward to becoming the county auditor and working in that auditor's office and interacting with the many fine people that work in Brookings and Champaign County government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Mr. Danos, what else do you want the voters to know about you?
In 2012, when I first ran for auditor, and it was an open seat, I had the endorsement of the News Gazette and the Business Empowered PAC because of my experience in the private sector as a financial analyst, working for Christie Clinic and also for Personal Care HMO. That was before I went back to school to get my master's in accounting and my CPA, and have become the incumbent. And so, of course, I look forward to those endorsements as well. I should also add that I was intrigued by Gary's previous suggestion to go to the legislature and have it mandated that there be a CPA in the auditor's office, which would allow me to eliminate my competition for all time. But instead, I seek to merely defeat him in the 2020 election.
Thank you, Mr. Danos. We have completed our auditor forum for tonight. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters of Champaign County, the NAACP, the News Gazette, and Illinois Public Media, WILL, for sponsoring of this forum. A very special thanks to Jana Van Behrens, who put the series of forums together. Just a reminder, it's not too late to register to vote. Information is available on the League website and the county clerk's website. Please register and vote. After a short break, our next forum will be the coroner of Champaign County. Thank you so much.